Hello and welcome to Ahead of the Curve. This is your host, Jonathan Gelner, and thank you so much for joining us today. This episode is brought to you by Motor Preference Experts. Ready to elevate your performance? Meet Motor Preference Experts, the premier authority on natural motor preferences in North America. Discover how understanding your innate balance and coordination can optimize your performance and minimize injury risks. Whether you're passionate about playing, coaching, or strength and conditioning, dedicated experts will help guide you to respect and enhance your body's natural motricity. Explore more at motorpreferenceexperts.com. Motor Preference Experts, helping you to become the best version of yourself. On today's show, we have on Dusty Hart, head baseball coach at Blinn College in Texas. Dusty and Blinn just finished their 2024 campaign with a 47-17 record, ending with a national title. Hart is now 93-32 in 2 seasons at Blinn and holds a career record of 718-314 across 18 seasons as a junior college head coach. Prior to arriving at Blinn, he spent 16 seasons as the head coach of the Grayson College baseball team in Denison, Texas. On the show, we discuss what last year's national championship team was like, what they do for hitting development, check out their World Series scores, wow, and Dusty gives a ton of practical advice on how to practice better. This episode is so good with Dusty Hart. Dusty, welcome to the show.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, man.
Definitely. Well, we were reminiscing about my unfortunate, but your very fortunate 2008 group at Grayson that won it, so let's skip forward. What would that be? Man, wow, I'm terrible at math. A long time later, last year, I just feel like I'm getting old now, right? So I say 2008, like that was like 2 years ago, and that's not the case anymore, man. But last year's group, you guys ended on a win as well. You know, you got the dog pile, and you got the Gatorade bath, and so I just want to know. Tell us give us a peek inside what that team was like, what the season was like, just anything and everything that you'd like to share about them. I would love to be able to take tremendous notes.
Well, it was just a really tough, resilient group of guys. I mean, that's probably the word. We had a lot of returners from 2023. So, we won the regional, won the super regional, and went to the World Series and finished 4th in the country. And so we were the team to beat this year in junior college in the state of Texas anyway. And honestly, we didn't start off good at all. I mean, we got thumped quite a bit. Of course, I challenged them a little bit with the schedule. We're playing Weatherford and Tyler and McLennan, Navarro. We always try to play the best schedule we can, but we looked up, and I think at one point we were 11-11 to start the year. And, it could have gone either way. Those guys could have, almost half of them had signed with Division I schools, and they could have very easily had one foot out the door. And, this season could have ended really bad. And they chose not to do it. I mean, that's the only way I know to explain it is the guys in the locker room decided that wasn't good enough. And a lot of them, I think, took the bull by the horn, so to speak, and stepped up and said, we didn't come back to be average. We came back to go to Grand Junction and to win a national championship. And I think it took us getting punched in the mouth like that early to get us to where we were at the end. Because, the World Series last year was probably the most competitive tournament that I've ever seen it up there. And I've been enough to know, let's just put it that way, that not always are all 10 teams capable of winning. Usually there's 5 or 6 teams there that have a legitimate chance of winning. And there's 3 or 4 teams that upset their way in there. But this year, 1 through 10, you could literally take in the number 10 ranked team and move them to the number 1 seed, and I don't think anybody would have noticed. So it's just a highly competitive tournament, and I mean, we took punch after punch after punch, and we kept punching, kept fighting back. And there was one point we won a game 21-19. It was an elimination game, the first elimination game. We just came off our first loss. Bottom of the ninth, we get walked off 15-14. So we lose that game. We get up 18-10 in the top of the seventh. So we're 3 outs from a run rule and blow it. Next thing I know, we're down 19-18, and we got 3 outs left to play. And somehow we managed to score 3 runs and get 3 outs in the bottom of the ninth. And I don't know that I've ever been around a tougher group of guys. I mean, could you imagine getting walked off the night before in the undefeated game? Only 2 teams left. You lose heartbreak fashion. Then the very next day, you're 3 outs from a run rule, and now you're staring elimination in the eyes with three outs left to go. And we scored 3 runs without getting a hit. I mean, it was it's one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life. Just dudes just grinding out at bats, getting hit by pitch, walks, and next thing I know, we score 3. We had to go to our number 1 to come back on short rest to close just to get 3 outs. Actually, I think he got 4 outs. I think he came in the bottom of the 8th and got us an out, and then had to get 3 outs in the bottom of the 9th. But just the roller coaster of emotions in just those 2 games right there, I just can't think of anything more resilient or more tough. I mean, that's just mentally tough. Like that team pretty much set the bar as far as what mental toughness really is in my mind.
So let me ask you this, from a coaching standpoint, is that something that you recruit to? I'm sure you want to, we all want more toughness in our programs, but is that something that you feel like you can help develop when they're there?
Oh, absolutely. I think you have to work on it all the time. I think there's no such thing as good enough. There's no such thing as tough enough. I think we're all human. So we all go through times of trial, tribulation, and I think there's times where all of us can get our confidence, knocked back a little bit. And so, the one thing I remember is about the 7th or 8th inning of that game. I went out to change pitchers, and I got the ball, and the pitcher was already gone, and the new pitcher was coming in. And I looked at every guy there, the catcher, first baseman, second baseman, shortstop, and third baseman, and I just said, you know what? Screw it. If we got to score 40, we're scoring 40. And I mean, to a man, there was no pouty. Every one of them looked me in the eye, and I could just tell they were like, okay, we'll score 40. If we got to score 40, we're scoring 40. And they weren't that way the whole year. I mean, I think it's part coaching staff. We're pretty hard on them during the regular season, and for a reason, though, because we want them to be able to fight through that stuff. And really, come playoffs, we're just cheerleaders a lot in the dugout, other than doing the hit and run or bunt, putting the plays in. But we turn into just the pick me up, positive. It's almost like you just flip the switch. You're on them pretty good about mental mistakes and stuff during the regular season because you want them to learn. But then when you get in the postseason, it becomes more hey, let's go, pick it up, overcome it. Who cares? Move on, just let it go. So there's definitely a different mentality, but we work on that. And of course we know that's a planned out thing. Like we know what we need to do come postseason.
Sure. Yeah, well, and that was my next question of, what were your emotions like? And, you've been there quite a bit. You've already experienced the national championship too, but what does that look like for you, and what advice for those who haven't been through that Like, what have you learned along the way as far as regarding or like controlling your emotions and like understanding, being in the moment, present moment, things like that?
Well, I think it's important that your team doesn't see you get too emotional. I think emotions are running high already, and adrenaline is spiking, and the games and the games mean more, and clearly they do. But at the same time, you want them to just do what they always do, because the more the more jacked up they are, the more adrenaline they got going, usually bad things happen. I mean, you got hitters swinging as hard as they can, which in turn usually causes them to pull off, fly open. Same thing with pitchers. If a guy's 88 to 91 the whole year with a bunch of sink and a good slider, and then all of a sudden he's 93, 94, the ball may flatten out or he may be up in the zone, or the slider might not be as tight because he's just overthrowing. So a lot of times emotion is your enemy in baseball. You'd like your guys to go out and play the national championship game just like they would, another inter squad or just another game in the spring. It's never going to be that low, but they have to be able to control their emotions. So, I think that's something that we verbalize to them throughout the course of the year, especially like when you're doing PFP or bunt coverages. You're not going to, in a game, especially in the postseason, you're not going to get that ball and flip it to the first baseman. You're going to get that ball and you're going to throw it 105 to the first baseman. So whatever you practice consistently is what your body's going to be used to. So if you're going 75% effort, pick the ball up and flip it to the first baseman, that's what you've trained your body to do. So of course you're going to throw it away if you go full out 100% in a game and pick that ball up and throw it as hard as you can, because your body's untrained to do that. So I don't feel like it's rocket science. I mean, it's just, what do you train your body to do and to be ready for? And we use that a lot in our program, like pitcher. If the only time you ever throw hard is when you get on the mound, does it make sense that you're not going to know where the ball's going?
Sure.
You practice it one day a week, and it's against hitters. So I mean, I think you have to throw hard and throw hard a lot, and you have to throw hard bullpens. Maybe not every pitch, but I feel like the last 10 pitches of playing catch and the last 10 pitches in the bullpen should be game-like as possible, just so your body has an idea of what it's doing when it does get out on that mound.
Oh, I love that. So let's get into some fall training, and you can talk a little bit about any and every fall you've been a part of. You've done it for a while. We could talk about the upcoming one, changes or whatever, but I really want to start. I'm an offensive guy, and you guys just absolutely raked last year. Like you talked about all the scores, and these guys may have to hit rewind, but there are a lot of double-digit scores against some of the best teams in the country at the end of the season. And I want to know, like, offensively, we can recruit good hitters, but you still have to help them hit good. And
Right.
so what does that look like for you guys? Just, I'm sure it starts in the fall whenever you get those guys, but, what are you guys looking for? How are you guys helping them train? Things like that.
Well, we're looking for a certain physicality. I mean, we'd like, and it just a certain overall athleticism. It doesn't have to necessarily be one or the other. You don't necessarily want the hulking, muscle guy, but you don't want somebody that can't run out of sight in 3 days either. So it's probably somewhere in the middle. We're kind of unique in that sense. We don't really recruit positions other than shortstops and catchers. In other words, specifically, like, I don't specifically go out looking for first baseman or right fielder or left fielder. Shortstop and catchers, you kind of have to be pretty specific on those two, because you got to have two guys that can play those two positions. But everywhere else, we're just trying to find the best athlete that we can with the most tools that you can find. And the deal in Grand Junction offensively, some of that is just confidence. I mean, those hitters are very confident. They like to hit in that park. It's got some thin air, and the ball, the fence is short. So, if anything, that's one thing Grand Junction can prove to any coach or younger hitter, because the arms out there are as good as there are anywhere. But yet, the offensive numbers, a lot of it is just confidence. Those hitters are so confident because they know they don't have to do a whole lot to hit the ball out of the yard. And so there's a lot of factors, but confidence is a huge factor when it comes to hitting and just being on pitches. And the biggest thing for us that we teach in our program is just plate discipline and approach. And that's a staple throughout any place I've ever coached. You can talk to any of the hitters I've ever had. We don't mess with swings as much as we call it disciplined aggression. If you're going to throw a strike, we're going to bang it. But the other side of that is, if you're going to throw a ball, we're going to take it. And so, there's some really good takes that create really good swings, if that makes sense. If you can take that, really good slider that ends up down and off the plate at your ankles that looks like a fastball, if you can take that pitch consistently and lay off of it, and you can take the high fastball at your eyes, the pitches that the pitcher wants you to get out on, it just doesn't take the more pitches you swing at that you actually have a chance to hit, your success rate is going to go up tremendously. I think a lot of young hitters, bad hitters, if I don't have to throw you a strike, then you don't even put me at risk. I can throw you 3 pitches, 4 pitches outside of the strike zone, and I can never put myself at risk, and I can get you out. You're a pretty easy guy to get out. For us as calling pitches, if we see a super aggressive guy that can't lay off pitches, like those guys are, we don't even have to put ourselves at risk. Like, I'll throw you 3 sliders in the dirt and go fastball up and in, and you're out, and you don't even have a chance to put the ball in play. And so we just really work on discipline. If you look, like 2023, we led the country in walks. I think last year we were in the top 10 in the country in walks. And the biggest thing about those 2 clubs, though, was the ability to take that into the postseason, because we've had teams before that couldn't do it. They couldn't control their emotions, and they got in the postseason, and all of a sudden the approach went out the window, and now we're swinging at everything, and everybody's trying to hit a home run on every pitch, and everybody wants to be the hero, and that's human nature. So I think the cool part about last year's club was the fact that they were able to take that approach into the postseason. And it's kind of the pass the bat approach and trust the guy behind you approach. But if the guy's going to throw you, get me over first pitch fastball, then we're getting after it.
No doubt. No, I love that. So, let's go through the fall a little bit more, just as far as the whole team concept, because I could talk offense all day, but we got to be able to pitch and play defense to prevent some of those runs too. So with that, you get your guys, August, September. What do the first couple of weeks look like getting those guys? Because you're getting, you turn over half of your roster every year, so it's a little bit different than high school, where we have them for hopefully 4 years.
Right.
And then there's, with 4-year colleges, and the portal. Anyways, back to my point, you turn over, most of your roster every year. So what does the integration process look like, or like the getting back into the groove process look like in August for you?
Well, I'll tell you, honestly, the fall, we really use it as an evaluation process as much as anything. There's not a lot of, we don't coach a whole lot in the fall, as far as like when we're going and playing scrimmages, we don't really have any signs. we want to see what they can do, what they're capable of doing. We want to see who has good at bats and bad at bats. And really, we just try to play as much as possible every day, whether it's T game, machine squad. Obviously we'll inter squad. We have the scrimmages against other teams. You got 14 dates, I think you can play now, which kind of equals 28 games really, because you go play one date. You're going to play 18 innings of baseball, if not more. And so, and it's also hard because, we don't always have umpires in the fall. So I don't want to, spit in the wind, so to speak, and us really talk about approach and taking pitches and getting good pitches to hit. And then the fall umpires are you got a coach out behind home plates, giving a foot off is a strike. So, we don't want to get too much into that in the fall, only because it can really create some negative emotion. Like when the guy knows he gets rung up on a ball, but he's trying to make the team, he's trying to, get his uniform for the spring. That can really cause some negative emotion there. So, we let them play. We'll do more like team defense, like bunts, first and third, cutoffs, relays. And we hit a lot. We usually do double BP every day on the field, which takes 2 hours just for BP alone, probably.
Okay.
And then you mix in that game after, and we kind of try to put something on the line. Not all the time, probably once or twice a week. We'll put on like losers got a 10 poles, or we've had winners get ice cream. It doesn't always have to be a punishment. I think sometimes it can be a reward, but just try to play the game of baseball as much as we possibly can in the fall. I think that would probably be my answer to that one.
No doubt. I love that. And probably for you, it gives you a chance to step back and evaluate, where your guys at, comparatively speaking to, what you recruited with, because I'm sure the last thing you want to do when they get there is start changing stuff.
1,000%. I mean, I think good coaches know when not to coach. I've always said that. I think, I know one thing I know is I don't know it all or everything. I'm constantly learning, constantly trying to pick up new stuff. Probably just like the kids are, honestly. Probably worse than they are. Just because it's what we do for a living, and it's, what I enjoy to do. And I enjoy listening and reading stuff on Twitter and, just trying things out and seeing if they work.
Sure.
But yeah, I think you have to gain a guy's trust first. You recruit them. You really don't know them. And if the first day during BP, you're changing everything, I think you're asking for problems.
Sure.
I think you gotta get to know them at least 3 weeks, if not to a month. And my rule of thumb kind of is when they ask for help. If they ask for help, that's when they're ready to listen. And, I think if they don't ask for help and you start changing stuff, I think that you're going to get some pushback with some kids. And
sure,
you have to know which kids, and there's some kids that they'll ask you the very first day, what was wrong with my swing? And you're like, dude, I just saw you take 20 swings, man. Like, that's that, you know what I mean? Like, there's over analyzers. You have to figure those guys out, because those are the guys you got to coach the least amount. There's sometimes you got to just tell them, like, hey, dude, stop worrying about your swing and go play. Just trust yourself. Because if you get talking to those kind of guys too much about mechanics, they're never gonna stop. They just worry about their mechanics all the time instead of competing. And some of them may not be broke. I mean, there's a reason we recruited them. There may not be anything to fix. So if they come in and they hit and they continue hitting and they're just finding barrel, finding barrel, finding barrel, I mean, I'm not messing with that guy, you know, unless we feel like he's going to physically harm himself, which would be more likely with a pitcher than a hitter.
Okay.
But, you know, there's some pitchers that their stuff plays and they're getting outs, and, you know, you don't necessarily want to mess with those guys unless they're unless you think they're going to, you know, injure themselves getting Tommy John or putting too much stress on their shoulder. But that's a great point. I mean, I've told every assistant, that's probably the first thing I tell every assistant or new assistant when I get them is first 3 weeks to a month, you don't really need to mess with those guys. And there's some guys that, you know, you don't have to fix stuff if it's not broke.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, you get them on campus. I'm sure you're trying to get them to know their teammates, and I'm sure you cast a wide net around the state of Texas. But as you know, it's a big state. Guys may not know each other. So what are some different ways that you guys get them closer? You know, you talked about having a group last year that really upped the standards and wanted to, you know, win a national championship, and they accomplished that. So how do you guys help them with, you know, providing opportunities for leadership or, you know, team building, or like helping them to understand standards and rules? Anything like that, I would love to hear about.
Well, we pick out a handful, you know, of returners every year that are kind of getting the torch passed to them, and those are the guys we lean on every year to get the guys together off the field, and not necessarily report back to us, because I don't need to hear it. I just need to know that they're actually doing stuff. But a couple things we do, I mean, we've put a ping pong table in the locker room. We put a ping pong table in the batting cage. We bought them PS5 and put it in the locker room. You know, we just want them together as much as possible. And we relay that to the leaders of the team. And, you know, there's some guys that they have to pull out of their room and make them go. And, you know, but if you got 26 guys that are going to do stuff and there's 4 guys that don't want to be a part of it, then the likelihood of those 4 guys being around in the spring isn't great, just because they're just unwilling to be a part of everything. So I think the players got to hold each other accountable to some of that stuff. You know, there's only so much we can do, but we'll have some fun days at practice where let the pitchers hit, you know, take some pitchers BP, which is always kind of funny because, you know, all the guys think they can hit. And we'll do some stuff where they get to play in the inner squads. Like if we're playing T-ball, we might let the pitchers play a position, get out there. And I don't want to say jack around, but just have fun, just big kids, you know, because at the end of the day, that's why we all do what we do in the game of baseball.
Sure.
So, you know, I don't think it's anything crazy. I think part of it is we treat them right. You know, I know myself personally, I don't feel as though because I'm the head coach that I'm superior to the players. You know, I feel like the way I was raised was you treat people the way you want to be treated. And so we just try to treat them right. You treat them like human beings. You don't have to talk down to them. I've got just as mad at any of them as, you know, anybody has. But at the end of the day, they know I don't hold a grudge, that it's a teaching point. And I'll tell them I'm far from perfect. So there's going to be days where you're going to have to hear the message and maybe not the tone so much. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think we treat them. We treat everything as like a conversation. It's not a do what I say, not what I do type of situation.
I like that. And so with you guys playing so many, you know, 18 inning games in the fall, do you guys do any, you know, competitions or, you know, a couple examples I see from different things and some stuff we do, like tracking points for stuff, or like we do, we call it Zebra Tough Challenge before Thanksgiving break, of where we'll do different obstacle courses and stuff like that. Do you guys do anything like that?
No, I kind of quit doing that stuff, to be
Okay.
honest with you. We did a lot of that stuff at Grayson. We called it Hell Week, and it was just basically a challenge. And heck, I even had, uh, I don't remember what part of the Army. It was either Army, Navy, Marine Corps. He was a serviceman. He
Okay.
came in and did a couple days of stuff, and I mean, we never ended up winning the national championship at the end of it,
Okay.
other than 2008. So I mean, you're talking that was almost 15 years ago, 14, 15 years ago. So I did that all the way through Grayson, probably till 2022, and we did it in 2008 as well. But
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't see the correlation wasn't there. It wasn't ending in Grand Junction every year. There were years we would still make it to Grand Junction. I wouldn't point at doing Hell Week as the reason we got there.
Okay.
I think there's other ways to teach them how to compete. I think we've gotten a lot more in the weight room the last 5 years, more
Okay.
so than I used to be. I think the weight room has a way of toughening you up, and with some discipline and
No
uh,
doubt.
and just the way you practice every day. I mean, that's the other thing, and it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. If you practice a slow arm, you're gonna have a slow arm. If you practice a slow bat, you're gonna have a slow bat. So the same thing can be said for every ground ball you take. As a shortstop, if I'm going through the motions on every single ground ball, then I get a game speed ground ball, and my feet are used to mediocre feet, the timing, mediocre
Mm-hmm.
timing. Then I'm not going to have a very good idea where the ball's going to be thrown. You know,
Yep.
if you take every ground ball game like, even if you only take 15 a day, if you took 15 ground balls as hard as you can, just like you would a game, I think you're better off doing that than you are taking 100 ground balls at 50% effort. Because, you know, creating habit is doing something over and over and over again. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. So
Sure.
if you do it over and over and over and over again at 50% effort, your body's not going to know how to react the first time you get a ground ball in a game and you got to go full speed. Um, I think that's part of why the big leagues has 6 levels of baseball before you make the major leagues. They
Sure.
want repetition, repetition, repetition. So I think the biggest probably missed on or slept on thing in our game is the slow motion of practice. I think you got to go hard, and you got to play the game the right way, and whether or not it ever works out for you, at least you go to sleep at night and say, I gave it everything I had. I think
Mm-hmm.
the worst thing about any of our careers is for us to look back and regret, man, I really didn't give it my all. And that's so cliche, but it's when you did get to be our age, 46, at least me, it's like those are the things you really do regret. That's why they're cliches, because there's some truth to it. So, um, I don't know that any of that stuff. I don't think it hurts. I mean, I think you got to do whatever you got to do to get your guys mentally tough. I mean, and if you got to do some obstacle course training and they got to fight through that stuff, I don't think it's bad for them. We just kind of quit doing it for whatever reason.
Gotcha. So when you guys get back from break, so early December they've got finals and stuff like that. And then you get them back in early January. What does that process look like? Where do you guys start, and then how do you get them ready for game one, which is about a month away?
Yeah, so we moved back January 9th because the first day you can practice is January 10th. And our first game is usually at the end of January. So we have roughly 3 weeks. We tell our pitchers we want them to be ready to throw one full inning. So we send them home with a calendar of what they're supposed to do every day as far as throwing goes. At least the bullpen, a lot of them have their own throwing places they like to go to and people, which doesn't bother me. But the main thing is just sticking on the bullpen day, so you know that you're ready to go one inning. And then we usually split our week, like the first week, if it's say the 10th, and I have no idea what day the 10th falls on this year, but say it's a Monday, we would put 4 groups together of 4 pitchers. So you have 16 pitchers. We'd have 4 guys going Monday, 1 inning, 4 guys going Tuesday, 1 inning, 4 guys going Wednesday, 1 inning, and then 4 guys going Thursday, 1 inning. So then the following week, we basically increase it by 1 inning every week. So you got everybody throwing 2 innings on week 2, 3 innings in week 3, and then usually week 4 is game week. So in essence, everybody's up to 4 innings by that first game. So our starter will go 4, and then we may go our number 2 first in relief, and he may go 4, and then we might close a guy 1 inning. And then the next game, we would, run our number 3 and 4, or just whatever order. If we got a big lead, that could change. I mean, we just want them all ready to go 4 innings by opening day. One, it kind of makes us throw some other guys because it's kind of easy to throw your one out there and let him go 6 or 7 if you're not careful.
Sure.
And nobody wants to go 7 innings in January. I mean, that would be
Sure.
insanity to me. But 4 innings tops, and then we move them up an inning every week as we go. So like the second week of the season, he can go 5. The third week of the season, he can go 6. And typically we sit around 6 or 7 for the rest of the year. Like I didn't have a guy go 9 innings until the postseason. And I think it only happened in the national championship game. And, Davenport was going to fight me if I took him out. So that's probably the only reason he got the 9th, because he was at 105 through 8, which is pretty good. And he's basically was going to get that dog paw one way or another. So he threw 135 pitches, but I think he only threw 100 or over 100 probably twice, 2 or 3 times the entire season. So he was fine to do it one time.
No doubt. So with that too, I rewind a little bit. You've got guys that, they've been the best player on their team or on their travel teams or whatever for their whole lives, and then you get them there, and a lot of times they're pretty equal in talent, and they look around the room and they're going, "Oh man." So what do those meetings look like? I feel like they're becoming more and more prevalent. I don't know if you see that too, of just that guys are, well, I guess with the portal too, guys want to know if they're going to play or not. So take us through, a player approaches you in the right way. What does that conversation look like? Do you guys have structured meetings, or is it just open door policy? And just take us through that a little bit, please.
It's an open door policy. I mean, we talk to guys all the time. Like, I mean, they're basically our family, honestly. That's the way I see it. I spend more time with them than I probably do my own family. When you're talking practice and from 1 to 5 every day, and then we usually lift from 6 to 9 every night. So the majority of my day is spent with those guys. And they know they can come talk to me, even if we're in the weight room lifting. We got the TV on, and guys are hitting, and some guys are back behind playing ping pong. Guys will come ask me what they need to do or where we see them, and sometimes it's an easy answer, like just keep doing what you're doing, you're fine. But I think parity in college baseball right now is definitely the best I've ever seen it. There's just not that much separation between even the good teams in junior college and the subpar teams in junior college. I mean, there were some teams that we played this year that were 30-win teams that gave us every bit of what we could handle, and I think some of that is there's a lot of D1 kickbacks. I think there's only 20 rounds in the draft. That's the biggest change in everything. I mean, think about 10 years ago, how many guys from the 20 to the 40th round would actually sign, and it was a lot. And there was a lot of guys that would sign in the if you got drafted in the 21st round, that was considered fairly high. Very good chance you signed back in the day. And so even I've lost 36 rounders before that got signed out from underneath me that never steps foot in college. So the biggest shakeup was the COVID year when there was only 5 rounds. I mean, think of all the 6th to 10th rounders that ended up going to school. And like nobody gets drafted in the top 10 usually ends up at school. Like maybe like 5 of the entire draft. And all of a sudden you had rounds 6 through 10 that were playing college baseball. And I mean, that just didn't happen. That was not going to happen in 2008. And now with it only being 20 rounds, I mean, you just can't mess around anymore. Like there's no more being one of the guys and hanging out and being a part of the baseball team. Like those days are kind of gone. Like there was a lot of guys that I played with that they didn't really care if I shouldn't say they didn't care if they started, but they just liked being around. It's almost like your own fraternity, the baseball team. And I think those days are long gone. I think if you're just hanging around trying to be on the bus, you're going to be out the door pretty quick. Because it's very easy to see when you got 15 guys in the weight room and 13 of them are drenched in sweat and 2 guys don't have an ounce of water on them. And, the effort level is very easy to see. How hard they're going is very easy to see. And it's not even personal for me. I'm just like, hey man, you're not cutting it. Like you're not getting it done. Like that's not the effort we want. That's not what we look for. If you don't want to be here, you don't have to be. This is a free country. That's why we love America. You don't have to be here. You can go be a doctor or be a lawyer and it's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to be here with this program and put that name on the front of your chest, you're going to do it the right way or you're not going to do it at all.
Sure.
And so I think that's the last thing we should have to coach. If we're having to coach effort, we're in big trouble.
Right. No doubt with that. And I guess how they respond to those moments it tells you a lot about them.
No doubt. I mean, we've had some that just wasn't their ideal. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's why you don't hear a lot of people say bad things about our program or when I was at Grayson's, just because there was no hard feelings on the deal. Like, and even some of the guys that couldn't play for me, sometimes they were my favorite players. They worked hard and they're great kids and I love them to death, and they just weren't good enough to play for us. And I don't think any less of them. I still think they're great kids and I still love them to death. They just weren't very good at baseball. Like I promise you wouldn't want me doing brain surgery on you. I mean, you do not want that. I'm not going to be a doctor. And, it's just kind of one of those things. I mean, to me, it's just not that big a deal. Just because you can throw a baseball hard or hit it far, it has nothing to do with how good a person you are, how much your teammates like you. In fact, some of the worst teammates I've ever had were some of the best players that have ever played. And, it's sad almost because now, 15 years later, it's still like you talk to guys on the team that played with them and they're like, remember that guy? And you're like, yeah. And it's just like the stories are so bad,
Mm-hmm.
negative, and it's just sad that some people got to act that way.
Sure, no doubt. With that, let's get into some in season structure or game planning. So let's say you got a weekend series coming up. This maybe after your midweek games, or you're preparing for an opponent on the weekend. One of the biggest things that I feel like has been a good thing is the amount of data and video that you can get scouting reports on opponents. Take us inside a look of what you guys kind of share with your players. What do you have meetings? You just kind of share, like, what does that look like when you're preparing for an opponent on the weekend?
Well, we'll watch video as a staff, um, and we'd look for holes on guys. There's a lot of it out there, but we don't really have like, as far as the team goes, we're more concerned with what we do and what we do well. And that's the beautiful thing about the game of baseball to me is it really doesn't matter who is in the other dugout. Um, Whoever plays the game the best on that particular day is going to win. It doesn't matter if they're 6'5". It doesn't matter if they're 5'5". It doesn't matter if they're at the school that's been to the World Series or they're the worst team you've ever played. If you don't execute and they do, they're going to beat you every time. So we don't tend to talk much about the teams we're playing. We talk a lot about our preparation and our execution and how we want to play. And one of the things is we don't want to ever play. We don't want anybody to outplay us, energy wise, how hard they're playing. And I mean, I think everybody wants to win on every team you play. They want to win, but there's things in between the lines, like, are you fighting for every inch? Are you fighting for every base on a ball in the dirt? Are you going first to third on every single hit? Are you looking for that out of the box, as a single, a double until they stop you? Like those are how you tell if somebody's really playing hard versus, you know, everybody can kind of look like they're playing hard, but when you got a guy, to me, if you're not getting thrown out or getting, trying to take some extra bases, then you're not playing hard.
Sure.
That's kind of our rule of thumb.
Sure. No
We'll
doubt.
prepare them pitcher wise, kind of. We'll talk with the hitters a little bit in the dugout, like, hey, this guy's a sinker slider guy, or we got to lay off the fastball up, or we got to make this guy throw strikes, like just things like that. But that usually goes on like in the dugout while we're watching the guy get loose or getting ready to play. The approach is always the same. I mean, we've obviously talked a little bit about that before, but that's what we really build on in the spring, is not taking a swing at any ball that we can't hammer. And that's an everyday thing. Like, even off the machine takes, you put the machine on, get it going pretty good, pretty firm. That machine's not going to throw it right down the middle every time. And you see a lot of guys that will just go in there and get 5 straight swings and get out. And we usually put an ink-snake to that like pretty quick. We want them taken anytime they don't feel like the pitch is a good pitch to hit. Sure. And so just learning to pull the trigger back a little bit, and taking bad pitches. But, that changes when you get 2 strikes. At that point, you're just fighting. We call it playing hockey goalie. You're basically trying to keep the catcher from getting the ball. So 2 strike, it becomes a team at bat. Before 2 strikes, I'm gonna hit a double. But I wouldn't say we have any like sit down in a room and have meetings, so to say. I know a lot of schools do that, so I don't discredit that. I think it's probably good that they do that, but junior college is a little different than the higher levels. We don't quite have the technology to really sit down and like dissect each pitch. I would love to be able to do that, but we just don't have that technology.
No, I appreciate the honesty, and then also, you're taking what it's obviously you've had success because, like I said, you guys are scoring double-digit runs off of guys in some of the biggest games of the season. So don't discredit yourself. With that too, I love to be able to talk through different things that you guys do. Pregame. I can't remember. It's been so long since I played. I can't remember what junior college pregames look like. I think we did BP on the field. Man, probably depending on where we were. But what yeah, we did for sure. What do pregame routines look like for you guys? How do you guys just use it to, since you play so many games, like use it as a way to just kind of groove stuff, or are you guys trying to gain reps for guys? Like, what have you found successful over your tenure as far as a pregame routine goes, and with the amount of guys that you guys have, and how do you win that aspect of it?
We do take we take pregame BP every day, whether it's on the road or at home, and everybody sets the field up for each other. Barring weather would be the only way that we wouldn't hit on the field, and we have set, like the shortstops are going to first, third basemen are going to second, the first group. In the second group, the second baseman's going to first, and the third baseman's, we just like flip that around quite a bit, where all the position players are throwing.
Mm-hmm.
The outfielders are just taking balls live off the bat. But we do like a group of 4 or 5, and they'll go like 4 rounds of 5. Usually you have 40 minutes to an hour to take BP. So we try to keep it at four groups of 5 is usually about right, 20 hitters. And so then we would take in and out before the actual game starts. So it's just business time. I mean, that's the only way I know how to say it. Like, sure. It's not time to be jacking around. There's not a whole lot of conversation going. I think guys are getting locked in. We do talk a lot about your routine and having the same routine to get yourself ready every single day. I think the monotony of baseball and baseball practice, people can skip out on having that good routine. And our goal is for every guy on our team to play in the big leagues. And, playing in the minor leagues, it can be a lot like junior college some days, not necessarily blend, because we're pretty fortunate with the crowds we get at our games. But a lot of junior college games on the road, we might play in front of 5 to 10 people.
Sure.
And you're not playing somebody ranked in the top 10 in the country. And so you may not have that adrenaline spike or that extra energy there. But at the end of the day, it's still your career, and you're still accountable, and you still got to play good, and you still got to put up good numbers. So how do you avoid those pitfalls of, okay, well, we're playing the last place team in the conference today on the road, and there's 10 people in the stands? Well, part of that the counteract to that is having that good routine that gets you in a good mental space every single day to go compete. So we try to get them to do that every day. Like your game day routine should be done Monday through Saturday, every day at practice, whether it's taking 5 minutes alone on the ground to just lay down and think positive thoughts, whether you're doing your stretching and just not talking to anybody else and just visualizing hitting doubles, hitting home runs, striking guys out, getting double play balls, whatever position you play, just visualizing that success. You really want to take at least 5 minutes every single day. And you can do it before you start stretching, or you can do it during your stretch. But it needs to be your time. You know, some guys like to talk while they're stretching in the stretch line. You know, if that's your time, you need to make sure your teammates know, like, hey, don't talk to me while I'm stretching. Like, this is my time. I'm getting locked in right here. Because what we don't want to happen is, you know, there's some guys that are good enough. They can come to junior college. They can dominate this level and not really put a whole lot of effort into it. I mean, it's just God's gift to that individual. And the problem with that is it is inevitable that every single player that puts a uniform on, they're going to reach a level of baseball to where everybody on the field is just as good as they are, where it's like looking in the mirror. Like, heck, Mike Trout, it probably didn't happen for him till he got to AAA or the big leagues. So he could probably coasted through A ball or even AA. But at some point, you're going to hit that level where stuff's not easy all the time, and you may not have that extra adrenaline spike that you had because you're playing the number one ranked team in the country, or there's 10 pro scouts in the stands there to see you. You know, so we talk about that a lot. It's just, how do you get prepared? And it's just that routine every single day that you go through that gets you locked in to have your best day that day. And it's an everyday process. It really is a lifestyle. That's why I say the days of guys hanging out with just hanging out on the baseball team are over. Like, sure. These dudes are trying to get to the SEC. No doubt. They're trying to get to the big leagues. And, you know, I just think it's a whole lifestyle. It's not just show up and I can practice for 3 hours and be good enough. Like, I don't think those days are ever coming back either.
No doubt. For sure. So before you go, I've got a couple quick hitters, and that's obviously great advice on that front. And but you know, we're running out of time here, and I've got a couple more for you. What is a drill or a competition that your players love that we can steal from you?
Whew, that's a tough one. We used to play. This is crazy. It doesn't have anything to do with baseball, but we used to play capture the flag all the time. Okay. And just get them that's competing. Funny. Okay. That's probably their favorite thing. Of course, we haven't done that in a while. That was always the final day of Hell Week. Okay. Back when I was at Grayson. We would let them pick teams, and they would play capture the flag. Right now, and this probably goes all the way across the board, I think the blue-white game, okay. We split them. We picked 2 captains, and they pick their teams. The coaches are off limits. We don't coach. We don't help. We give them guidelines as far as what a number of pitches pitchers can throw and how many days they can throw back to back, because we don't want them to kill each other type of deal. But that's probably their favorite thing is really us just getting out of the way and letting them play. We call it the Blue-White World Series. It used to be the Navy-Gray World Series at Grayson. Now it's the Blue-White blend. And we just sit up in the stands and watch. That's kind of the finale of the fall. They pick the captains even. We have them pick 2 team captains, everybody on the team. I bring the 2 captains in. We have a draft. We go down the list. We do have to make sure, they got a catcher and a shortstop and every position's covered. And then we make sure that they have the entire pitching staff covered, and they eat it up. I mean, we sit up in the stands like we're scouting. They'll kind of come, the captains will come to us sometimes and ask us about, pitchers or where they're at and stuff like that. But we turn the scoreboard on and we let them get after it. And we've had to cool it down a couple times, but
I bet.
it's probably the most intense week of the entire fall,
Hmm.
if I had to guess. I mean, they take some serious pride, and we don't even play. I've seen a lot of teams play for something like for stakes or whatever. We literally just play for bragging rights, and it gets pretty humorous to watch for us. I've seen some guys have actually made the team based off of 1 week. You
Hmm.
know, you see some competitive nature come out that maybe we hadn't seen before because they're just trying to survive. Maybe a little bit in the fall. You know, it's the first time they're in college baseball. They don't really know what's going on, and you get in that blue white World Series, and they kind of forget about all that, and they forget about us coaches, and they just start competing and trying to win. And I can honestly say there's been numerous times where I've seen guys do things, and I'm like, okay, that's
Hmm.
what I'm talking about right there. I like
Yeah.
that, and
Mhm.
that's probably their favorite thing.
No, I like that. Is it a 5-game series, 3-game?
It really depends on the year.
Okay.
5 games is ideal. Seven's a probably too many, just because I don't know that we have enough pitching uh, to really split up a 7 game series. So
Okay.
sometimes weather will affect it because we have to be done by November 15th.
Okay.
So usually November 1st and November 15th, we'll split it up. And it takes 2 weeks to play a 5 game series. You want to play like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday type deal, just so the guys that start on Monday can come back and start again on the following week. So it takes a little space, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. That's probably what I look forward to at the end of the fall the most too.
Oh, that's great. Next question I got for you is what is something you've been digging into lately, or what is, one of the latest things you've learned that's made you better at your job?
Well, I'm always trying to learn. I think that's the biggest key is I don't know that that was true early on in my career. I think when I was when I was younger, I mean, I was very, very lucky. Let me put that out there first. I mean, I got my first head coaching job when I was 26 years old at Grayson,
Mm-hmm.
which was a top 5 program in the country, taking over after Tim Tadlock, who'd already won 2 national championships. There was about 3 or 4 years there where I thought I was going to get fired every single day. Um, my whole goal in life at that point in my career was not to let the alumni down, the guys that laid the foundation at Grayson and had won all those games. And heck, I was on the very first team that played at Grayson, so I was friends with a lot of those guys. So I think there was a lot of pressure that I put on myself to win. Really, I think now that I'm older, I've got 2 kids in college. I've got 2 kids in high school. I understand a lot more now what parents are concerned about, and I care way more about, are they going to class? Are they being a good citizen? Are they being a good kid? It's just way more than about just baseball for me now than it used to be. I think I've leaned in more to we've got to help these guys grow up and be men and be productive citizens of of the country and live a good life and be good husbands, good fathers. When I was 26, I was still trying to figure out how to be a good father. I didn't have any idea what I was doing probably. Um, but I learned from my mistakes. I will say that
Mm-hmm.
I've screwed up just about as much as you can screw up in this game. I've been very lucky to win 2 national championships, and a lot of that it it was the players, the guys we had, and I do think it goes down to how you treat them. And so the last few years, it's really kind of dawned on me, especially at Blinn. Blinn's a pretty big monster as far as it's just a big program, lots of moving parts. there's 30,000 students that go to school here. So baseball is a very minimal part of our institution. So that's probably the biggest difference now between when I was young and as an older coach, just knowing that these guys we are their father figure for a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. Well, that's what I was going to ask you next, is leaving some advice for any coaches, but that was pretty good right there. I don't know if you've got anything else to add, but you were awesome today. I'll leave you with whatever you want to leave the coaches with, but I appreciate your time, man, and looking forward to more conversations.
No, I appreciate you having me. I think that's probably the biggest lesson the biggest thing I would tell any young coach is if you know everything, then you're in the wrong room. Whatever that little saying is, like if you're the smartest guy in the room, then you're in the wrong room.
Mm-hmm.
You can always learn. You can always get better. It's not about winning and losing baseball games. If you do things the right way off the field and every day, the wins and losses they'll take care of themselves. I mean, the guys just want to be loved on, and they do want structure. I mean, I think that's the other thing. I think guys do want structure. They want to do things the right way, and sometimes they just don't know how to do it. And so, just show them how. Don't assume that they know anything. I mean, I guess that's probably something that I do different now. Like we used to kind of assume that guys came into our program, with it being college baseball, that they knew certain things. And, now we start from scratch, basically the first of the fall, almost as if we're in T-ball a little bit. Like we start all the way from the very, very beginning of fundamentals and work up from there. So I think, you can get too fast and furious, so to speak, and just be worrying about wins and losses. And you got to build little bricks every single day. And 6 months from now, you'll see good things happen.
Thank you so much for listening to Ahead of the Curve. If you would do us a huge favor, leave a rating or review wherever you are listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone and tag us on social media. That would help us so much with growing the show and helping others to stay ahead of the curve.